It was a normal Tuesday morning in the small farming village of Umuohi in southern Nigeria. Families were starting their day, cooking breakfast, feeding animals, getting water from the well. The sun was just coming up over the hills, casting long shadows across the red dirt roads. Suddenly the ground began to shake. Pots and pans rattled on shelves, cows mooed in distress. "Earthquake!" people shouted in alarm, but then a horrendous roar split the air, louder than thunder. Villagers froze in terror as an enormous creature topped the hills, blotting out the morning sun. It was over 100 feet tall, towering like a small skyscraper. Hard, bony plates covered its body like armor. A huge tail swung behind it, crashing through buildings. Its head was like a monstrous lizard with giant teeth and black, unfeeling eyes. The giant monster opened its mouth and belched scorching flames across thatched rooftops, igniting them instantly. People began screaming and running in all directions. Mothers grabbed children, farmers herded cows. But there was nowhere to run from this unearthly beast. It stepped on clay huts, crushing them instantly. Some villagers froze in fear and were eaten in one huge gulp. Within minutes, half the village was destroyed. Fires raged through collapsed structures. Injured people staggered about, covered in dust and blood. The monster roared as if satisfied with the chaos unleashed. Then it turned and strode away, its massive footprint sinking deep into the dirt. For hours after it left, fires continued burning. Slowly, people emerged from hiding spots, under beds, in root cellars. They gathered the injured and searched for survivors trapped in rubble. Family members wailed with grief over lost loved ones. The village was almost unrecognizable. As the sun set, shadows grew long while people worked to clear debris. The monster's heavy footsteps had damaged the town well, and water was scarce. Many children cried from hunger. The villagers faced the night gripped with fear and uncertainty. Would the beast return? How much more destruction could they endure? When dawn broke the next day, the villagers convened an emergency meeting. So many homes were destroyed that families crowded together. They had little food or water. Communication lines were down, preventing them from calling other towns for help. If nothing was done, they would surely perish. The village priest offered a suggestion: travel through the hills to a Franciscan Mission 20 miles away. Perhaps they could send aid and spread word to the outside world. All agreed it was their only hope. But the journey would be dangerous. Wild animals lurked in those remote hills, almost as frightening as the monster itself. But they had no choice. A small group of the strongest men, including local hunters, volunteered for the hazardous mission. They gathered what little supplies remained and set off at noon under the blazing African sun. Progress was slow on the steep trails. Thorny bushes tore clothes and skin. 2 men were bitten by vipers before a hunter could kill the snakes. By nightfall, exhaustion overcame them. They made a simple camp and took turns standing watch for predators. In the darkness, they heard lions roaring and jackals howling. The men looked at each other grimly. Would any of them live to see their families again? At dawn, the bedraggled group continued their trek, determined to reach the mission. After several more hours, they topped a rise and saw a welcome sight, a small village built around a church. Excitedly, they hurried down the path into the mission compound. The resident priest and nuns listened in dismay to their horrific account of the monster attack. These missionaries had a shortwave radio and immediately called the district capital, begging them to send helicopters with emergency personnel and supplies. The priest also authorized using their own small medical clinic to treat injuries until more help could arrive. Too exhausted to walk back, the scouting party gratefully accepted the offer to spend the night. After the nuns bandaged their wounds, they slept on the clinic cots, utterly drained. The ordeal had left them skinny and haggard, with haunted eyes that had seen far too much. But at last, they felt a glimmer of hope. At daybreak, helicopters bringing police, disaster aid workers, and journalists began arriving. The stories the Umuohi villagers told made headlines that were soon broadcast globally. Various theories emerged about the creature's origins. A dinosaur thought extinct, some mutated rainforest creature, an alien beast. A Nigerian military unit soon came to assist. Soldiers helped the shell-shocked villagers collect their dead for mass burials to prevent disease. Other troops put up tents and set up cook stalls to feed homeless families. Doctors treated the injured while aid workers documented losses to compensate victims. When the army unit commander inspected the devastated village himself, he made an astonishing discovery. Enormous claw marks marred buildings, suggesting something had attacked the monster too. Could another colossal beast be lurking nearby? This chilling possibility prompted him to keep helicopters circling day and night on surveillance. The air patrols soon spotted something, a bizarre creature clinging to a mountain in a secluded valley. It looked like a winged reptile from ancient times with green, scaly skin, elongated head and yellow eyes. The wings were folded bat-like against its body. The military observers gasped, could this be Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god of Aztec legend? When helicopter cameras focused on the creature's razor-sharp teeth and deadly claws, the commander was convinced it posed a threat. This flying monster could be even more lethal than the first one if it attacked the vulnerable refugee camp. He knew drastic measures were needed. Calling in experts from a zoological institute, he asked if tranquilizer darts could neutralize it. But they worried such tiny doses meant for elephants could not possibly overwhelm a creature that size. The institute staff concluded explosives might be the only option. No one felt easy about it morally, but if the winged serpent decided to attack, it could inflict unbelievable carnage. Lives had to be protected. Thus, the commander approved an airstrike as a last resort, hoping the secretive creature might simply stay hidden in its remote roost. 3 days after the initial monster attack, just as emergency housing modules arrived for displaced villagers, the winged beast stirred from its mountain lair. Alerted air patrols watched anxiously as it stretched its wings and launched itself. Their worst fears materialized. It was heading directly for Umuohi. All attempts to divert it failed. Troops herded panicked villagers into underground shelters, then manned defensive positions around the camp's perimeter. Their light weapons would only antagonize, not harm, this gigantic beast. It could crush hundreds in one swift blow or turn them into cinders with its fiery breath. The commander realized he had one last option. Calling in the airstrike would decimate the refugee camp. But there was no choice with the dragon-like creature approaching fast and furious. He gave the dreaded order, hoping some victims might somehow survive. Moments later, missiles struck the giant flying serpent, detonating with deafening explosions. The bombs left it dazed but still airborne, now spewing flames. Another round of missiles finally blew off part of its right wing, sending the shrieking beast spiraling down. Its enormous body plowed a mile-long trench when it crashed earthward. The stunned survivors slowly crept from shelters, expecting their camp in ruins. But the fallen carcass had stopped the monster short of the tent settlement. Soldiers stood watch as scientists descended into the crater, hoping to claim skin samples and unlock biological secrets. Beyond collecting research materials, the team made another remarkable find: eggs. This spells new trouble ahead, so for now, an uneasy calm has returned to Umuohi. The scorched ruins left by the first monster serve as a grim reminder of how unpredictable and perilous life has become in their remote corner of Nigeria. Reconstruction is slowly underway, but progress halts whenever seismic monitors sense underground tremors in the dragon's body burial site. No one dares guess what the next chapter may bring. Could another menacing beast rise up from those eggs one day? Perhaps even more horrific than its parents? The weary villagers have no idea what new threats may emerge to spread more death and destruction across their land. For today, though, there is finally food, shelter, and humanitarian aid for struggling families. While safety seems transient, these resilient survivors are thankful for each day granted them. Only time will tell whether they can prevail and rebuild their community, or if the giant monsters have marked this place for utter doom and devastation unlike anything the world has ever endured.